All right, Mr. Rocky Juarez, thank you very much for coming on to the BoxingBar.com, man, and welcome.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Question one, where were you born and raised?
Well, I was born in 1980, April 15, 1980, in Houston, Texas.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You're like the only boxer, I believe, that by record, by birth certificate, your real name is Rocky, not like Rocky Marciano, Graciano, Balboa, or even Rocky the wrestler. You know, you're like the original Rocky.
Well, I don't want to say the original, but I mean, I was, Rocky is in my birth certificate, and it was a birth given name.
And why was that? What was it? Was some boxing plugged there somehow? You know, through your family or through your parents?
Well, I don't want to say that. I know my grandfather happened to be the only fighter, from what I know, coming out of my father's side, and he happened to basically kind of teach me the basics when I was a young kid. But besides that, I mean, I never really thought I was going to take up boxing. I mean, I would fight in the streets and stuff like that, but I think the sport that my whole family played was baseball. Just happened to be that when I got into boxing, I preferred the feeling of winning in a single individual sport that I just had to continue doing it.
Was it the streets that, you know, got you into boxing or into fighting? Was it one day that you just by chance happened to go into the gym? I mean, how did that fall into your life, man?
Well, when I took up boxing, I was 12 years old. My grandfather actually took me to my first boxing gym at the age of 9, but the coach didn't pay much mind to me, and at that time, at 9 years old, I think I had preferred playing baseball at the time, so I stopped boxing after 1 month. But the crazy thing is that here in my neighborhood, the kids that actually grew up on the block, we would always put the boxing gloves on against each other and just tell each other, "Well, we'll go against you, and you versus you," and it's just we would just put them on and fight against each other.
So you go into
So
the gym for the first time, but I mean, what was that feeling like, or what were your feelings while you were in that gym?
basically, was learning the basics. My grandfather taught me the basics of boxing, but it's different. You have to actually be in a boxing gym, kind of see what goes on in the gym, and spar and actually fight against somebody that actually knows what they're doing. That changes you a different aspect. That was something that I could always do. As far as boxing, I was rough, but you could see that I had the ability to adapt very fast. And like when I got back into the gym at the age of 12, I joined near boxing gym right here where I live by, Ray's boxing gym, and I remember going to the gym on a Monday, and by Wednesday he had already had me sparring for the first time.
You know, was that something? Did it come naturally to you? Was it something that you had to really work hard at to actually get good? I mean, what was that first experience like getting in there to spar for the first time?
Well, I always knew how to fight. I tell people you can teach somebody how to box, but if they don't know how to fight, they're in trouble. And I think I always knew how to fight. So it's just basically kind of learning the basics of boxing and combining both fighting and boxing together to progress.
And progressing is pretty hard, especially when you're a young kid and you have to give up eating, all the candies that you probably want to eat, or all the foods you want to eat, or go out and hang out with all your friends and your buddies, or have girlfriends. You have to pretty much sacrifice a lot of that when you're a kid growing up to develop yourself as a young man in that ring. Was it pretty hard for you to do all that or sacrifice all that when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely, man. Any fighter who makes it to a top level, national champions, making a state, even those that sometimes don't even make it. Some boxing is a tough sport, and I tell any kid that actually wants to do it, that it's going to take a lot of their time. It's going to take a lot of sacrifice, hard work to basically be good at it. I mean, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't dedicate yourself and work hard in the gym, you will never succeed and be the best at the sport.
So many Mexican American fighters, when I ask them this question, what was it like for their parents, or what did they think of them getting into boxing? And everybody always has a different answer. But I mean, what was it like for you, having your parents know that their kid is getting into a sport like this?
Well, my father was a big drive in me. My father he pushed me hard, and he was very hard on me. And that was in anything. Whether it was just working, cleaning outside, or anything. My father always taught me that if you're gonna do something, to be the best at it. And I remember when I first started fighting, my father told me that if I'm not gonna go out there and do what I'm supposed to do to better myself, then just not fight at all. I remember one time growing up as a kid, I actually kind of wanted to quit. I said, I don't want to box no more, Dad. He goes, oh, well, okay, that's fine. And then I told him, I said, I don't want to go to school anymore. Oh, you don't want to go to school? Okay, that's fine. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, shit, everything's good. So when I went to sleep that night, woke The next morning, my father grabbed a glass of water, threw it dead in my face, woke me up with a glass of water to my face, and of course, if you've never had that happen to you, I mean, you wake up like, what the hell is going on here, you know? And he told me, he goes, "Ándale, cabrón, vamos a ir a trabajar," which basically means, get your ass up, just go to work. And he took me to work. I missed school the whole day.
That's called tough Latino love right there, right?
Oh yeah, man. And I tell you what, man. I always knew my dad was a hard worker, and when I went to work with him, and he would always take me to work at times. Just as the runner, go get me this, go get me that, clean this, clean that. And I remember when he did that, I said to him, I said, "Dad, I don't want to work. I want to box." So he said, "What? All right, then we'll get your butt back to the gym then." And then I went back to the gym the next day.
And when you were, let's say, hitting a bag back then, when you were a teenager and hitting bags and sparring and going to the gym every day, what types of things came to your mind while you were hitting a bag and, to make you run that extra mile? What type of things did you put in your head to motivate you?
Well, my grandfather was a big motivation. My grandfather was the only other fighter in my family. My father didn't box. He loved to watch boxing, but my grandfather was a fighter when he was a young man. And I remember coming home from school even before I took up boxing. Walking home from school, and my grandfather happened to be outside every day. Doing something. Typical a Mexican worker. He's outside doing something. You don't know what he's doing, but he has to be doing something. And I remember walking home from school, and he would always basically tell me, ven para acá, come here, and he would put his hands up and tell me, okay, work these combinations. And I would hit his hands as if they were mitts. And I used to listen. That was the one thing because my grandfather used to do that with all my cousins and my brothers and basically everybody in the family, just trying to teach everybody how to self defend themselves. And it just so happened that I was the one that actually like really really listened.
And being in the sport by that time, by your teen years and your amateur years, I'm sure you were watching professional boxing yourself. What guys did you look up to? What guys, got you going whenever you saw them in the ring or on TV?
Well, I was always intrigued by boxing. A lot of kids at my well, let's just say at the age of 8, 9 years old, I have a 10-year old. And I can put him in front of the TV and while a fight is on, and he won't show no interest in watching it. And I remember as a kid, I was always intrigued by boxing, and I always loved to watch fighters like Julio Cesar Chavez, Mike Tyson, Arturo Gatti, and I remember these fights very well. Where I was at, and not even fighting at the time, not even boxing, taking up boxing. But I remember just being intrigued by the sport, and it was just something that I enjoyed watching.
He had over 150 fights, like 145 wins, more or less. Correct me if I'm wrong, but around that. You start getting into the deep waters here. You start going towards the Olympics and doing all those trials for that. What was that like once you got to the finals to go on to the U.S. team? That victory where you won to go on to the Olympic team. What was that like for you?
Well, at that time, I hadn't suffered a loss in quite a while. I mean, I guess from the year of '98 for 2 years, I didn't lose a fight. I mean, I believe it was about 68 consecutive victories leading up to the finals in the Olympics. I remember fighting in a tournament. I fought a kid by the name of either it was Tiger Allen or Rock Allen. I know they're brothers, identical twins. And I remember fighting them, and I was intimidated by Rock or Tiger Allen. I was intimidated by them because they were young and strong, and everybody would talk about all these kids are coming up, and they're bad. They're bad boys. So I remember fighting them, and I said to myself, I allowed the hype to get to me, and when I fought him, I held back just a little bit, just enough to where he defeated me. And I remember I told myself I would never allow that to happen to me again, and I did so. I said every fight I go in, I'm going to fight 110%. You can never go wrong. From that fight on, I had won 68 consecutive victories in a row. I just wish I took that with me in the pros as well.
You got a gold in the World Amateur Championship, and that was in Houston, I believe, right?
Yeah, that was actually here in my hometown.
Robert Garcia is well known here in Oxnard. His first world champion is Steve Luevano, and you beat him in the United States Amateur, I think, featherweight championships, right?
Yeah, Steve Luevano, I believe I beat him like 2 or 3 times as an amateur. I remember beating him in the nationals. I had beat him in the Olympic box offs, but Luevino was always my biggest, toughest match because him being a southpaw, tall, and he had decent power. People underestimated Luevino's power, but he was very crafty, I could say.
You go on to, the 2000 Olympics, and you're going to be representing the United States in the Olympics. I mean, what was that like for you, for your family, for your friends, for your fans? I mean, what was it like there in Houston, man?
It was great. I mean, it was great. I mean, when I won the World Championships, I don't believe that didn't put me in the Olympics yet. I still had to win the box offs and also the American qualifier or something like that. So where I had to fight Colombia, Puerto Rico, Mexico, and I fought another country. But that was actually the tournament that put me in the spot to represent my country.
Once you got to Sydney, man, what was it like for you, that experience being there, knowing that you're going to be going in there, fighting at this dream tournament, at the
Well,
Olympics for the United States? What was that like, man?
you know, making the Olympic team was never really a dream for me. To me, being in Sydney, Australia, I had already went to the World Championships right in '97. I had went to the World Championships as well, representing the United States, and that was in Budapest, Hungary. I was the youngest guy on the team, but it was all the same. It was just to me another tournament, and I didn't really think of it as this is the Olympics and the biggest stage of my career as an amateur at that time. I just looked at it as another tournament, and I had to go in there and do the best I can and win.
You didn't feel any of that added pressure?
No, I mean I don't. From what I recall, from what I remember, being in the Olympics, we all knew as a team, because we would talk about it. I remember talking to Ricardo Williams Jr. We would talk Clarence Vincent, and basically everybody knew that this was our opportunity to shine, and if we were planning on going pro, and I knew I was planning on going pro after the Olympics. So determining whether or not we won gold or silver or bronze or not even medaling determined on how we were going to be getting picked by the scouts. I like to call them, the promoters. So I knew I had to go out there and perform the best of my ability to show the promoters, the scouts that I was
You were for real.
I was for real, to go into the pros.
And you didn't just try, but you got all the way to the end, man. You ended up fighting a guy from Kazakhstan, Bek
No,
Saturknov, and
Turbanov.
he ended up, I guess, holding a lot. It was a very controversial fight. I remember that, and there was a lot of holding. And next thing you know, you lost a decision there, and it was very controversial, man. What was that like to lose that opportunity of winning gold? You won silver, but to actually, get that stolen from you.
Well, it was very disappointing, man. I can tell you that. I remember like it was yesterday. I remember being on the podium, second place, looking down, crying, upset, um, just upset that I didn't win the gold because I knew I had worked so hard to get to that spot. I didn't even really blame the judge at that time. I remember thinking to myself, you don't think about it. I mean, yeah, I know the judge was in favor of the fighter I fought, and the guy held and was holding just about the whole third and fourth round. But I remember just thinking that I let my country down, you know, that I was seeing another flag being risen up over the American flag. You don't, how can I say, I'm a Mexican American. I was born here in the United States. My family's from Mexico. But when you actually go and you compete, representing your country, it really becomes a sense of pride and honor. And when I lost, I mean that's what it was. It was like I felt like I let my country down.
Would you say leaving the amateur style and going into the professionals, would you say, did you feel like maybe your style and how you fought was more suited for the pros and the amateurs at that point when you were still like in the Olympics?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I was a body puncher. I had always been a body puncher. I was always a body puncher from the time I took up boxing. My grandfather and being from Mexico, Mexicans always throw body shots. And he used to always tell me, go to the body, go to the body, go to the body. You hit the body, the head will fall. And I always had a good left hook, and la gancho, la gancho. And he would always tell me, throw the gancho, throw the hook, throw the hook. And I would always go to the body, create openings. If the guy was blocking his body, go to the head. He's blocking the head, go to the body, mix it up.
And I don't know if you ever see like the posts I do online and stuff like that, but I'm always posting on those Mexican fighters like Vicente Saldivar, Raul Raton Macias, Ruben Olivares, Salvador Sanchez, all the
Oh
way
yeah.
down to Chavez and everybody else. They were all body punchers, man. And you're exactly right. And I'm sure your grandpa took it from there.
Oh yeah. I mean, any Mexicans, it's just we throw body shots. You know. If you're born in Mexico or if you're trained by a Mexican fighter, they're gonna make you go to the body.
And your first pro fight, man, it was nationally televised. I remember seeing that on Showtime, I believe. You were a showcase there. Juan Diaz was showcased there. Even a Mexican Olympic
Chito Bojado.
fighter, Panchito Bojado, and I posted his, I think, online through YouTube.
Right.
I posted his fight on there. But you guys fight over in Connecticut. You guys are there in the locker room before your pro fight, man. What were you thinking back there in the locker room before going out through the drapes that day? Knowing that you were going to have smaller gloves, your hands were going to fly a lot faster, but you were going to receive harder punches. You weren't going to have the shirt on. You were going to have the headgear on and all that other stuff. What was it like for you, man, thinking of all that stuff
Oh
before
man, it
going
was
through the
nerve.
drapes the first night?
I was very nervous, very nervous. I happened to be the guy, one out of the two American fighters who won a silver medal. Nobody had won a gold medal that year of 2000 Olympics for the United States. But I was one of the two silver medal guys, and I was supposed to come out and show out. And I remember putting on these 8-ounce gloves, Reyes. I've always wore Reyes. I think I probably wore maybe Everlast gloves, maybe two fights out of my career. And I remember having these Reyes gloves on, and I was waiting for my coach to put my headgear on. I'm thinking, holy shit, I ain't gonna wear no headgear. And I had to punch myself a couple of times, and when I punched myself, I said, oh damn, I'm hitting myself too damn hard. Like shit, I better not get hit by my opponent. So there was a lot of nerves going on, going into my first professional fight, but I was excited at the same time. I knew I had worked very hard in the gym. So a lot of times a fighter, man, when they know they put in the work, they go in there with that confidence of, the only way I'm going to get beat is if the guy's better than me or if I get caught by a lucky shot.
And after that first performance, after the 4 rounds, and you finished that first fight there, did you say to yourself, like, man, what am I getting myself into? Or did you know things were only going to get better from here?
Well, my first fight I didn't look very impressive, and I remember after that fight I had received a lot of criticism on my first pro fight. Going into that first fight, people don't realize I fought an undefeated guy. I think with the record of 2-0 or 3-0, and well, southpaw at that. We went in there thinking the guy was right-handed. The guy happened to come out southpaw. I'm thinking, okay, he's just trying to fool me, and then he's gonna fight conventional stance. But he never changed the whole fight. And I'm thinking, what the hell is going on here? I'm supposed to be fighting a damn right-handed fighter. After the fight, they happened to tell me that the guy said he was right-handed, but he was always taught how to fight left-handed, and that's why there was a mistake in my matchmaker at the time. We thought he was right-handed, but he was right-handed, but he just fought left-handed his whole career. So it caught me by surprise. So I was just having to adapt to it.
You won by unanimous decision there in the fourth round. After that, it seemed like you were just racking up. The power was just starting to show. You seemed like you were knocking everybody out after that.
Well, even as an amateur, I was knocking guys out. I mean, either I was hitting them to the body, knocking them out, or dropping them with body shots, or to the head. So I was always confident with my power. But as an amateur, you're taught to win fights by points, not so much by power. So it was a matter of adapting to the pro style. And I remember after that first pro fight, having a lot of criticism. It made me very upset and made me want to show that, because I think Monchito Bojado, he was the big talk at the time, and everybody was talking about, because he had knocked out his guy, and it happened to be till about my fourth or between my fourth and eighth fight where I started being like, okay, well, Rocky Juarez, he's the bread and butter of the team. But everybody was coming out looking good. Jeff Lacey was knocking everybody out. Panchito Rojado was also, still winning in impressive fashion. But I just had my own particular style. The longer the fight went, the better it suited for me.
You brought up like that. You had like a lot of critics. Was that like a big factor, man? Did you feel extra pressure because of all this Olympic, fame that you had got? Could that hurt somebody, coming out of the Olympics with all that added pressure? I mean, was that hard for you personally?
Well, that comes with the territory, you know. I mean, it can be fuel to the fire, but at the same time, it can also be like, why are these guys talking about me? Why, you question why are these people that don't even know you writing negative stuff about you? You know, when you're busting your butt in the gym every day and trying to give the fans the best fight possible. But that's me being young, and that's something that takes time to be able to get used to and adapt to. I mean, it just comes with the territory. So I mean, I'm not gonna knock it.
What was your lifestyle like at that time? Let's say your first, dozen fights. I mean, what was it hard for you to be disciplined because you were kind of like in a celebrity status, especially like your area in Texas? Was it hard to stay away from, let's say partying or all this fame and stuff that was going on, with you personally? Was it pretty hard to adapt to, the outside life aside from all the ring stuff?
Well, yeah, it's very hard. To a lot of these young guys that are coming up, that man, they need to stay motivated. They have to keep their head straight because my first professional fight. Here it is. I'm just a kid from the neighborhood making $100,000 his first professional fight on a 4 round fight, and you don't realize the life change it is. But you got this money, and you're like, you don't know what to do with it. So, of course, you have a lot of moochers, I like to call them, a lot of new friends, a lot of people that come around and even family.
Yeah, hang arounds and leeches and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, even family that want money, or family that are coming out of the woodworks that you've never met in your life, that come to you and say, hey, I'm your cousin, I'm your no, I'm your daddy's cousin's sister's brother, and you're like, what the hell? Okay, but if anything, man, it is tough because at the time I never had went out. I didn't drink. I didn't party. I didn't do any of that leading up to the Olympics. Now all that's actually started to come out once I turned pro. But I remember even in my 4 round fights, it wasn't difficult, but life does change. I remember if I did go out and I did drink, being a young man, never seeing the lights of a club and the women, then the women come too. With that, it changes, you know. But I think I can say that I was very disciplined. I would say when I was fighting 4 round fights, I didn't drink at least 1 month before a fight. Um, I always knew when I was scheduled to fight because, of course, I was a big investment to my promoters. So they would tell me ahead of time when I was fighting, and I always train hard. I mean, I think that's probably why my career lasted so long because I was always a hard worker in the gym. I always busted my butt and stayed focused.